And for how long, for how many projects have you invested already? And can you share more about them?
Yeah, so ever since we gone public in July, we've invested in one, which is Say Network, the order book chain. Actually, before that, before Tangent was formally organized, we were kind of investing. So some members of Tangent were investing together, either by coincidence or sometimes, we would just kind of share deals with each other. And when we were in that kind of incubation mode, Tangent actually invested in 3 companies. So one is called Goblin Sachs, which is actually an NFT finance focused DAO. So they're currently underwriting a lot of loans on NFT Fi, and they're exploring a lot of integrations with different NFT protocols to provide liquidity. So they could be a market, they could create vaults where people can deposit ETH, and then they can use that ETH to market make on NFT exchanges or to underwrite NFT loans. So that is more of a blue sky bet for us to work with a group of people who are very deep in the weeds with a very small and emerging market. And the goal there being, once this market scales, these guys will be able to corner the market and really be tapped into all of the protocols. So that's number one. Number two, we bet on a team called Voyage as well. So we actually invested in that deal with Delphi Digital, and they are building a super app for NFTs. So what we realized is that now the experience for buying, collecting, and showcasing your NFTs is really all over the place. So we've seen a lot of different protocols, different projects or companies proposing new front ends or new wallets for kind of showcasing and collecting your NFTs. And this is the only team we've met that actually thinks beyond that. So what can we do beyond just a wallet to hold and show and trade your NFTs? So they created this new feature called Buy Now, Pay Later, because by talking to a lot of collectors, they realized that smaller retailers may not be able to afford some of the blue chip NFTs they want to own. So they're essentially creating a tranche product for people to buy now and pay later within the wallet itself. And with the vision being building a super app for all of your NFT needs. So that's another team that we bet on. I think the team hailed from both Web3 and Web2 background as well. And then the final team that we bet on is a team called PNM. I don't think they're very public yet, but they will be very soon. So this is a group of cybersecurity experts that are offering a low-level code fuzzing tools. So for those not aware, this is basically a tool where you plug in your code base and they will automatically detect any potential bugs. And they're building on prior knowledge of bugs that they've detected and building this kind of ML model that helps you detect your bugs over time. And they're doing it in a much more sophisticated way than any other alternatives that we've seen out there. And so far, the founders that we connected them with, that they've worked with before, have stellar things to say about them. So we're really excited to be investing in that deal with Volius Ventures, which is one of the kind of new and up and coming and leading funds in consumer-facing applications in Asia as well. So yeah, those are all of our investments so far. As you can see, a very, very small and concentrated portfolio. We intend to invest in more, but very slowly over time.
So I see you betted quite a lot on NFT projects, but currently we see quite a big drop on the NFT market, and like OpenSea trading volume is now dropped 99%. So what are your thoughts on the future of NFT, and what type of NFTs will have real use cases and will be viable in the future?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I think that the 99% drop is obviously a pretty crazy magnitude, but at the same time, it's important to remember that anchoring bias is also real, right? If you compare where trading volumes for NFTs was today versus like 3 years ago, we actually came a really, really long way. And I think the 99% is just because things got way ahead of themselves, as they always do in crypto, right? We remember in 2017, we had the ICO wave as well. So I'm not too concerned about the long-term adoption of NFTs. I do think that one really interesting behavior that was unlocked in the past 2 years is people starting to represent their own identities with NFTs. And this is the first time in a big way, besides, I think, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and general speculation, that crypto grew beyond just a niche audience. So we had celebrities, mainstream news, talking about using NFTs as part of the communities. We have bands that previously have no interest in crypto at all, now issuing their own NFTs to engage their fans, to distribute digital goods to their fans. So I think as a community management tool, as an identification layer, NFTs are really, really interesting. And that's actually proven my prior thesis wrong. So one of my prior thesis was that the biggest use case in the short term for NFTs is representation of real world assets on chain. So NFTs on, a mortgage, or NFTs on an invoice, because that to me was like the most practical way of adding liquidity to assets that have value but have no liquidity. But turns out it's the completely other side of the spectrum that took off first, which is all these profile pictures in games. And so I was definitely wrong on the thesis, but I'm really excited to see it take off now, and we're adjusting very quickly and trying to keep up, just like everybody else.
Yeah, let's see. And as well, from where did you get your deal flow? Like, are you in close relations with a lot of funds which send you the deal flow, or projects just apply via your website or something, or reach out to you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I think all of those, and also a network of founders we've backed before. So back at Spartan and with my partner back at Defiance, I think we've collectively invested in probably over 100 companies, and a lot of those founders we work closely with, and those founders consistently refer deals to us. So for instance, if a lead engineer, after spending 3-4 years at a top protocol, they decide to strike out on their own and start their own company, we're usually the first to hear about it as well, from these founders. And obviously we love to work with other funds as well. So as an angel collective, we don't lead deals, which makes it a lot easier for us to not be zero sum. So we don't have to, elbow other people out of deals. We can actually work with funds we respect and want to work with. So some of the funds that we talk a lot to, folks like Dragonfly Capital, I really love the team there. We talk a lot to the team at 1KX as well, who is actually the team that referred Goblin Sachs to us. Folks like Folius Ventures that I talk a lot to, as well as a lot of other up and coming funds as well that we have close relationships with.
And what upcoming crypto trends do you see, and what will be the catalyst for the next bull run? What type of projects do you expect to see?
Yeah, so I think the common trends typically are not that interesting to talk about because everybody knows about DeFi, NFTs, and infrastructure and so on. I think some unspoken trends are things like Web3 social. So we saw inklings of that happening already with, I think back in the day, we have PeepEth, which is this decentralized version of Twitter, which was just horrendous to use. Like every click was a transaction, so it's untenable. And then afterwards, the next iteration was BitCloud, which obviously had a lot of controversy when they launched because they co-opted a lot of people's profiles from Twitter and ported them over to their own decentralized Twitter without consent. So, I take a lot of issue with that. But I thought that was an interesting step in the right direction. And after NFTs took off, when people started to incorporate their social media on Twitter or Facebook or so on, or Instagram with their NFTs as their profile pictures, I think that was the start of people using crypto assets to represent their identity. And I think the next step is probably creating more robust identity networks around these representations. So a project that we covered on my podcast called Block Crunch Podcast was called Project Galaxy. So they're actually building out on-chain identity for people based on what protocols they interacted before. And there are a lot of other projects that are doing the same thing or similar things. So I do think once we have consensus around what type of identity stack we want to use, we can build a lot more interesting social use cases that we haven't even thought of before. And I haven't seen a lot of people talking about that, but that's something that we're keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, I remember actually even during the times of ICO, there were a couple of decentralized social media projects, but they didn't really take off and nobody cared about them back then. And probably around 1 year ago, I remember Vitalik's speech was quite focused on decentralized social media, and it was already more than 1 year ago. And then probably the most hyped project is Lens Protocol. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I did see Lens Protocol. I think what they're working on is really interesting. And Stani, as a founder, obviously is one of the most respected founders in this space as well. So I welcome all types of development on this identity layer. I think the go-to-market that Lens is using is quite interesting as well. If they do decide to build up, say, a credit score for the users of Aave, and imagine if every Aave user has different interest rate instead of just offer the same variable rate based on the credit scores on chain. I think that's a really smart go-to-market because you're tapping into an existing user heuristic and user base, and then you can grow beyond that, right? Besides just having credit score based on your Aave lending history, you can also add maybe data from Project Galaxy by incorporating your engagement with different protocols. And maybe you can even add data from different governance platforms like Snapshot to show how active you're in governance and build a robust Web3 portfolio, Web3 profile. There's also a company that I wrote an angel check in called Sysmo. So they're building a ZK-based identity layer. And the long and short of it is they're able to aggregate information across multiple addresses, and using zero knowledge proofs, they're able to create an identity that doesn't dox all of your addresses at the same time. So I think that that's a pretty critical layer of the stack as well. If I have to, guess when this is taking off, I don't think it's in the short term. Probably within the next few years, but it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I guess it's really hard to transfer users from traditional social media to decentralized social media. So what should be the strategy to transfer and to get those Web2 users to Web3 applications?
Yeah, my feedback to founder is like, don't try to boil the ocean, right? Don't start by trying to go after, the Facebook users and trying to, supplant Facebook. That's type of vision typically sells really well to Silicon Valley VCs. They love it when founders say, we're going to take all of Facebook users today. But if you look at all of the popular products within crypto, all of them basically took off within crypto native circles first. So my feedback to founders is really talk to crypto natives and build for crypto natives first, and use that to bootstrap your initial group of users and then grow from there. And that's exactly what Lens is doing, right? And that's what a lot of DeFi protocols have done as well. And I think it will continue to do well.
And how do you generally see the state of current market, and how long this bear market can continue?
Yeah, I think the consensus right now is that a lot of this is macro dependent. So a lot of people are Fed watching, which regrettably is not what a lot of crypto analysts sign up for, but it's what they have to do now. So for us, because we're early stage investors, we're not really concerned about where the cycle is. I think as long as we are confident on the next 5 to 10 years and we don't overpay for valuations, I think we'll be fine as a collective. But yeah, in terms of where price is going, I don't think anybody knows. And we're just just waiting it out with the rest of the founders trying to build.
And what do you see the sentiment among the VC funds? Do you invest much less now? Like, are they scared to invest, or do they just take on that the valuations are now lower?
Yeah, I think a lot of the VC funds have dialed back on being so active, and in general, deal flow has also slowed down a little bit in terms of a lot of founders that are trying to capture the crypto hype. They've basically been washed out of the market, which I think is a good thing for investors, because now we have more time to actually get to know the founders more, diligence to products a little bit more. I think a lot of funds that are disciplined with valuation are still hesitant to deploy, because as you mentioned, right, I think we gave 2 examples of large layer ones that raised that insane valuations recently. I don't think the euphoria, the euphoria from primary markets is completely subsided, because a lot of the funds that were raised in Q4, Q1 are still not fully deployed. So there's actually still a lot more capital than people expect in the primary markets. It's just that in secondary markets, retail liquidity is completely dried up. So when it comes to funds that are buying in liquid markets, I think everyone that I talk to seems to be more or less patient and just kind of waiting to see what happens.
And what is your advice to make the project successful?
Oh man, that's it's a lot of directions to take that. I think, not to be cliche, but hiring the right team is very important for that. I think in a bull market, a lot of projects tended to overhire for people who showed, any type of interest in the project. I think in a bear market, you really need to hire for the right type of folks. So a friend of mine, Richard Chen from One Confirmation, loves to back what he calls missionaries and not mercenaries. And I think those are the type of people you need to look for in a bear market, right? People who are aligned with your vision. And it really comes back to the point that I mentioned earlier, which is founder market fit, right? Is your team uniquely qualified to solve this one problem? Can you articulate why the existing solutions haven't worked before? I think those are the things that you should be able to do as a team. And those are the qualities you should be able to seek out in people you hire.
Yes, that's true. And as well, do you still actively invest on secondary markets? Do you buy a lot of altcoins?
Yeah, so with my personal portfolio, I do actively track the secondary markets. I wouldn't say I'm a trader. Tangent doesn't actively trade anything. But I think there are a lot of interesting potential opportunities in secondary markets as well. Just because a founder has launched a token shouldn't mean they're precluded from our involvement as Tangent. So we're also keeping an eye on public markets, on things that are already listed, but still relatively early stage.
So can you share some of your altcoin picks?
I'd rather not show coins, but I think if I have to share projects that I am excited about, I am quite excited about Maple Finance. So I recently put out a 20-page report on what Maple Finance is for BlockCrunch. And I do think that they straddle the line between centralized finance and decentralized finance quite well. And there's actually quite a few more other projects that are coming to market that are similar to what they're working on. Yeah, I think I'll keep it at that for now. I don't want to, end up shilling too many of my bags.
Okay, thank you for interesting discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rana. This is really fun.